Hello, I'm Caroline Fairchild, and welcome to LinkedIn News Live, where the business conversation begins with you. It's Jobs Day. Just a few hours ago, the Bureau of Labor Statistics announced that in the month of May, 559,000 jobs are added to the economy. That's almost twice the pace seen in April. LinkedIn's Workforce Report, which is the platform's monthly report of hiring, skills, and migration trends, shows that job growth is still below the pace it was last year at this time. Joining us now to discuss is Brian Shu. He's a data scientist for us on LinkedIn's economic graph team. Brian, welcome to LinkedIn News Live.
Hey, Caroline, how's it going?
It's so good to see you. I wish we were in the office together, but this will have to do for now. Let's break down this 559,000 number of jobs gains that we've seen this month for our viewers. Where are we at this point in the recovery?
Yeah, people are seeing this as solid recovery. It is still below pre-pandemic level, but it is double the amount from last year. And also something that is coupled with this is that we saw the unemployment rate drop below 6% for the first time in actually a long time before pre-pandemic.
And of course, the number one question here that everyone has on LinkedIn is, where are the jobs? Where are the biggest gains coming from?
So the thing that people notice from this one is the biggest job gains have come from leisure and hospitality. I've started going to restaurants more lately. As vaccinations continue and cities are starting to open up, people are starting to get more comfortable with eating out. And what that means is people are needing to hire more people in those industries.
And people are starting to go out again, and so they're seeing that reflected in the jobs report. Speaking of going out, what about remote work at this point in the grand reopening, as some people are dubbing it? Are we seeing fewer remote jobs, more remote jobs? Where are we there?
So something that's been interesting to me is this report. We saw that the remote people working for remote work due to the pandemic decreased from about 18.3% to 16.6%. And this indicates that perhaps return to work and the office is starting. Something that we found on the LinkedIn jobs data side is that there's been a really big increase in remote jobs posted on the platform. So for example, last year pre-pandemic, it used to be a very niche perk that people had. Only about 1 in 50 jobs were remote jobs on the LinkedIn platform. And now it's about 1 in 10. So that's been a really big increase.
It's a huge increase. And speaking of return to office, have you gone back to the office yet?
I went back briefly in September, October to pick up a box of stuff. Felt really weird. Have you been back in the office at all either?
I haven't been back, but I guess we're in stage 4, which basically means that anyone can theoretically go back on Monday. So I've been thinking about that a little bit, if I should do that. But Brian, back to the jobs numbers at hand here. What has been the market reaction so far to what we've seen in these gains this last month?
People are seeing this as solid. There's been some eyeballs on the labor force participation rate. Given that we still have a lot of unemployment people, it dipped a little bit. It seems like it's been hovering for the past couple months. That's something that people are paying attention to. And people are seeing that solid, but a little bit cautious because there's a lot of optimism a couple months ago.
And of course, LinkedIn came out with its own national hiring report today through the Workforce Report. Where did we find that the hiring is happening right now?
The hiring is happening in terms of industries in very similar things that we see in the BLS report. One of the biggest gains in industries is recreation and travel as well. What this graph is showing is that the orange line shows the hiring rate from this year. The black line shows the hiring from last year. So you see, as we hit February and especially March, and then going into April and May, hiring rate drops significantly. And so this year, we've seen a gradual increase in this hiring rate. And so for the past month in particular, it's remained pretty constant, dipped down a little bit. The overall trend is that it is seeing a recovery as well across the country. And then the year over year number there, 158.4%, sounds really big, but then you just look right below at the black line and you see that this is reaching the point where hiring was at an all-time low last year in May.
Yeah, I read some analyst notes this morning that were talking about how these jobs are not going to come back overnight, but this month is at least a glimmer of hope that they are starting to come back a little bit. Where are the jobs, Brian, in terms of location? Is this where are there certain cities that are doing better in terms of getting people back to work right now?
We've been looking at some migration data, and certain cities are bringing in a lot of people right now. I believe people are valuing more space and affordability. And so at the top of the list, you'll see places in Texas, Austin, Sarasota is a place in Florida, Nashville, Tampa Bay, Charlotte, you'll see a lot of these places that actually are associated with states with lower income taxes as well. At the bottom of this list, in terms of where people are moving out, it is out of a lot of these big expensive cities like San Francisco, New York, Boston. However, what remains to be seen is this a trend that continues happening, or as people return to work, people will start going back into some of these big expensive cities? Because during the pandemic, a lot of the attractive features about big expensive cities were definitely a lot more muted. And people are like, I just want a yard. I just want to be able to walk around outside.
I've thought about that, but I think I'm going to stay in Brooklyn for the near future. And I guess if you're in the stream right now and looking for a job, some of those cities might be one to consider to move if you're open to it. Well, Brian, thanks for joining us on LinkedIn News Live and breaking down those jobs numbers for us.
Always good to see you, Caroline. Bye.
That was Brian Shu. He's data scientist here for us at LinkedIn. All right, let's continue the conversation now with a founder whose startup is addressing the national talent shortage directly. Rachel Carlson is the CEO and founder of Guild Education. She received her undergraduate, master's, and MBA from Stanford University, and she spent her entire career committed to increasing access to education. Rachel, so good to see you. Welcome to LinkedIn News Live.
Thanks, Caroline. Good to be here.
All right, let's just start with an issue that your company is dealing with directly right now, which is just so many frontline industries are struggling to find workers right now. What are the main challenges that you're hearing on the ground at this point in the pandemic?
Yeah, I think this is puzzling when looking at just the numbers, right? It's clear we have millions of folks who want to get back to work, and yet we have these job openings that we're hearing about no matter where we go. My sense is we have a pretty fundamental mismatch in what people need and what people want relative to what employers are able to offer. So in terms of what people need, I mean, we've got 2.5 million women who are out of the workforce because of needs related to childcare and shift schedule and the roles they're in. More macro, I think there's a desire from workers that we're really seeing, especially everyone who reevaluated their life in 2020 about whether they want to go back to a job or enter a career. And you're really seeing that as you look at the mismatch of what companies are positioning and who's winning in this war for talent and who's not. And what we're seeing is that the companies who are offering career pathways are the ones who are winning.
Because there is this dichotomy here, right? Workers can choose where to work right now, but there's still the skills market is just rapidly changing to the point in which it's unclear where workers should be thinking. We have so many job seekers who join us on LinkedIn News. What should workers be thinking about right now as this skills market is rapidly evolving, as the career landscape is rapidly evolving?
Yeah, if I were searching for a job right now, and obviously we speak to Guilders all the time who are thinking about how to create economic opportunity for themselves, the number one thing I'd pay attention to is the company creating the opportunity for me to grow. And that might mean growing within a company. That's kind of the classic model that we were taught by our grandparents and our parents. Look for a company that will help you move up. And that can be in career pathing, in upskilling, in mentorship. But there's also a lot of companies that are, I think, more realistic to the notion of the tour of duty, right? Which y'all's founders really innovated on, which is, where can I go and work for 3 to 5 years, but gain skills and support and upskilling that will project me either up or onward from the company I'm in now? And so, you've got partners that we see in companies like Disney and Lowe's and others who are saying, you might be in a role today in a theme park or in a cashier role in a store, but we're going to help you become an electrician or a nurse or what have you. And you may be an employee for now, but you're going to be a member of our community and our brand's family for life.
Well, Rachel, unfortunately, even though a lot of companies are doing this, we're hearing on LinkedIn, a lot of companies are still not thinking this way about people's careers in terms of upskilling and opportunity. I actually want to bring up a quote right now from a member named Crystal, who wrote this on the platform. She said, I interviewed at a local seafood restaurant known for being a little pricey. They offered me someone who has been in the industry over a decade, minimum wage. That's the case with a lot of restaurants. They see your experience, want you to hire because of that, but can't offer you more money. Raises are rare. So you're standing next to some kid straight out of high school that barely knows what end of a spatula to hold, who is making the same as you. Crystal, I wanted to show you this member comment because this is what Guild is working against right now. It's trying to make employers think more holistically around the benefits that they're giving workers. Is this gaining traction? And for employers who aren't thinking this way, what are they losing out on?
Yeah, so Crystal, you should go apply for a job at a place like Chipotle. So there are companies that are thinking about this the right way. The way Chipotle would talk to you about this is they want to help you move up within the company, whether that's through skills that advance you within the kitchen roles that you're in now, whether that's moving into a people management role, overseeing the restaurant, or into a supply chain role where you're actually overseeing the food that comes in and out of the restaurant every day, or into a role on the technical side. They're now pretty much a technical company, given that most people order their Chipotle orders on an app today. And so if you want to learn how to code, that's a path. I think what you're hearing in her comment that's so frustrating is that in a prior American economy, we did pay for experience and now we pay for skills. And so we need to help make sure that Crystal and everyone like her is at a company that is going to help them develop the skills that sit on top of the experience they already have.
It's such a good way to put it in terms of experience versus skills, and people are paying for skills right now, but employers need to help their workers get these skills as well. I'm going to go ahead, Rachel, and say hello to some members who are joining us in the stream right now. We have Michael from Nashville, Hugo from London, Andrea from California, and Steve from Indiana joining us on LinkedIn News High Live. I'm here with Rachel Carlson. She's the CEO and founder of Guild Education. If you have questions about what's going on with the labor force right now, questions about education benefits that you may or may not have with your employer, get those questions in the stream. We'll have a conversation with Rachel about that on today's show. Rachel, let's break down just the talent shortage and the talent crunch right now that we are seeing right now in the labor force that Guild is addressing. I think we have a full screen graphic that we can pull up to kind of show and illustrate some of these numbers, but it's just been devastating sometimes what we're seeing in terms of what is happening right now with the labor shortage, and also what's happening right now with the amount of companies who are saying that they can't find the talent that they need. 70% of companies report talent shortages in the past year, and 80 million Americans without a college degree are likely to be displaced by the job market. What's this tension that we're seeing right now between employers and employees not being able to match up effectively?
Yeah, so I think there's a lot of uncomfortable truth about how when you break down the unemployment numbers, how they look by sub-demographics. So the unemployment rate for those with a college degree has barely moved. It was 3.5% at its worst. It's 3.2% today. It's effectively fine. Meanwhile, the unemployment rate for those over 25 without a high school degree, with a high school degree but no college, has hovered around 7% for the course of the pandemic, and it's up to 9.1% for those without a high school diploma. And so again, we're in this skills-based economy now, where if you don't have the skills to translate and you aren't at a company that's constantly allowing you to develop those skills, you're going to get stuck, and unfortunately you're going to get left behind. And so that feels like, I'm saying like it's a workers challenge, but it's also our companies who need to embrace that that's the challenge their workers are in. And I think the best companies are turning it into an advantage. And we now know that the companies that are offering upskilling of some sort are seeing a 25% increase in their high quality job applicants.
Yeah, zooming out a little bit, Rachel, obviously Guild was around pre-pandemic, but I would love to get an understanding of how the pandemic has shifted demand for services like Guild, what the best employers are doing right now to ensure this is happening, that the workforce is moving in the right direction, and we're focusing less on experience and more on how can we get workers the skills they need today.
Yeah, so the war for talent has two trends to it, right? There is the how do we attract and retain workers today. And, I just mentioned the attraction number. We know upskilling is a key tool that can increase attraction. It also can more than triple retention. We know that companies who offer upskilling to their employees see that those employees using upskilling retain that, for example, at Chipotle at 3.5x the rate of their peers. I think the piece that often gets missed is connecting this also to jobs of the future and careers of the future. We know that this workforce and also these companies are going to need to take the workforce they have today, which is very scarce and very intense in the war for talent, and then repurpose them. So that same person you're fighting to attract and hire today into a cashier's job, well, we know that cashier's job is probably gone 5 to 10 years from now. So if you're doing it right, you're bringing that person into your company, but you're also being honest with them that job might not be there 5 years from now. So you're either helping them upskill within your company or beyond your company.
And of course, just the demand for employers being able to do that effectively led to your Series E round, which was announced on Wednesday. 150 million, getting your valuation up to 3.75 billion. What are the goals with that capital? What is the next step for Guild at this point?
Yeah, a few things. One, we are doubling our product and engineering team. So good place to say it. On LinkedIn, we're hiring, and we're hiring around the country. We're also growing our coaching team, and we're hiring those coaches in the communities where our students live. So that's exciting that both of those roles are now national in scope. And then we're really continuing to expand our learning marketplace. So more certificates, more credentials in skills that we know workers and employers want, like cybersecurity, data analytics, digital marketing, allied healthcare, you name it, so that we can say, how do we help people get into the jobs of today, but prepare them with the skills for careers of tomorrow?
And Rachel, I was looking at some of the numbers in terms of the hiring that Guild is doing, and it's some hockey stick growth. And I don't think I have to tell you that some of your unicorn founder predecessors weren't the best in terms of hiring at this point when it comes to diversity. So I'd love to hear some best practices that you're planning to do right now at this point when you are hiring en masse.
Yeah, I think that is the challenge of all of us who have the privilege to grow companies at this speed. And sorry, that's a little odd. The light just went out.
It is what it is. We're a live show. Go try and turn it on. I can hold base here, or we can just
hold on 10 seconds.
All right. Rachel Carlson is going to turn back her lights. I think she's in a hotel room right now, and we're talking right now with her about just the talent shortage that we're seeing, and also the labor numbers, and she's back. And right now I'm getting her take on how to hire effectively and diversely.
Well, there we go. Nimble, right? I was going to talk about agile workplace and being agile. So there you go, being agile. So a couple things. I think when we look at the populations that were really particularly impacted by the pandemic, you've got communities of color, you have women and parents, and you have boomers. So let's talk about those three. So in terms of communities of color, that's something Guild has been doubling down on for the course of the year, but we're really trying to think strategically about it on all dimensions. One, we increased our sourcers who are thinking specifically about diverse talent. We charged every people manager with changing their perceptions on how they hire from every stage of their process, unconscious bias training, but also we're expanding outside of the communities we've hired in. We've traditionally hired in Denver, San Francisco, and a little bit New York. We are now hiring in the communities where our students live, which allows us to hire communities that look and have lives like our students. Our students are 54% female, 56% students of color, so that's helping. Additionally, we have our on-site childcare and preschool, and that's really helping us retain parents and mothers at a way above average rate. In fact, we had stronger retention of our moms at Guild over the course of 2020 than we did in the year prior. So I know that's quite rare for most companies. And then thinking creatively about getting boomers back into the workforce, making sure that ageism isn't a part of your hiring profile.
I definitely want to talk more about this daycare center that you opened, it was about a month ago?
Yeah, let's see, 2.5 months ago now. Yeah.
Okay, so 2.5 months ago. And I think it's so fascinating because the conversations that I have with employers are a lot of time is, we can't open a childcare center. The logistics are hard. It wouldn't work out. It's just not something we can do on site. And you did it. So tell us how it's going, first of all. And is this something that more employers should be doing?
So it's going really well. It's both doing good and doing well. It's a magical little place. It's called Beehive. And my kids are there. So I obviously have my heart there. The reason it's working is we heard all those same things you just said, but every time I heard that question from a CEO, oh, we can't do it. The insurance will be too expensive, this and that. I said, well, did you try? And nobody had tried. And so I figured, well, we've got the blessing of the board, and this is something I'm passionate about. And so we went and did it. It was incredibly hard, but not for the reasons we thought. The regulatory hurdles were actually what was so difficult. We took 100 meetings with folks at the local, city, and state level to get it through. And so we're going to open source, and we're working on this right now with the Time's Up Care Coalition and other organizations that are focused on helping get moms back to work. This isn't what Guild does for a business. It's just something we've become very passionate about and that I'm personally really passionate about. But it's harder than it should be for employers, let alone necessity entrepreneurs like women of color who often want to open daycare centers to do so. And we need to change that if we're going to get America's economy back up revving.
We certainly need to change that. And yes, opening a childcare center can help, but Rachel, I don't have to tell you just the devastating impact that this pandemic has had on working women. 5 million women lost their jobs. We still have millions of mothers who are not in the workforce right now. What else is top of mind for you as we think about getting these women back to work?
Yeah, I really do feel like this issue of women leaving the workforce is one that isn't getting as much attention as it probably needs to. So I really appreciate the question. I think that we have to think about it from an infrastructural level. There's a good quote that in other countries there are robust social services, and in America we have moms and women. And I think that is unfortunately true on a number of dimensions. So we need to think more flexibly about work, which I think we have this opportunity, this unique moment to change how we expect people to work in the US. We need to think more flexibly about skills and how do we help people refresh their skills if they've been out of the workforce for 3 to 5 years. That used to be a blip. My mom took 5 years off at one point with us when we were kids. Today, 5 years is the life of a skill. So if you take 5 years off, you have to be completely rebooted from a technical skill perspective to re-enter a frontline or middle class job in America. So we just need to wrap our arms around that problem infrastructurally. And I think that requires more support at all levels from both the private sector, the public sector, and from our communities.
Well, speaking of thinking about caregiving as infrastructure, next week on LinkedIn News Live, Thursday at 3 Eastern, we'll be speaking with Tina Chen of the Time's Up Coalition, which Rachel just mentioned, as well as the CEO of Care.com. So if you're in the stream and want to hear more about that, you can join us Thursday at 3 Eastern. Rachel, thank you so much for joining us. I'm seeing so many members in the stream just so thankful that there are entrepreneurs like you thinking about these problems so holistically and coming up with solutions.
Oh, well, thanks for getting the chance to talk about it.
That was Rachel Carlson. She's the CEO and founder of Guild Education, walking us through today's job numbers, but also what she's doing to try and change the talent shortage that we're seeing right now in America. Thank you all for joining us in the stream and for your comments. If you want to continue the conversation on LinkedIn, be sure to check out the news module to the right of your LinkedIn feed. Or if you're in mobile, you can click into that search box. All right, back here on LinkedIn News Live on Monday, my colleague Nina Melendez will be discussing the pros and cons of stakeholder capitalism. It's a big topic. She's going to break it down with BlackRock CMO Frank Cooper and Harvard Business School's Sanjay Gulati. I'm Caroline Fairchild. Thank you so much for joining us on LinkedIn News Live.